Playing Dungeons and or Dragons is like playing one of those choose your own adventure books, except you don't get to choose the adventure, you just get to choose how you play it. Unless you're the DM, then you do get to choose the adventure, you just don't get to play it. Hi, if you're like me, you want to know how you can win at everything, because otherwise, what's the point? But D&D is said to be a cooperative game, meaning you either win together or you lose together, which sounds like something a loser would say. So you want to know how to win? Here's a confusing and numbered list that can show you how. Step 1. Learn all the rules. To start, there's a book called The Player's Handbook that explains the rules of the game that you need to buy and read. Luckily, it's called The Player's Handbook, so the DM isn't legally allowed to read it. But DMs get their own book called The Dungeon Master's Guide that also contains the rules. But it's a different set of rules that are optional, which is why it's called a guide and not a rule book. Which is great until you remember that guidelines is just another word for rules. Luckily, The Player's Handbook even says that it contains everything a player needs to create heroic characters for the world's greatest role-playing game. Which in this case, we're going to assume refers to D&D. So that should be everything you need, right? Unfortunately, the Dungeon Master's Guide says something similar, meaning you'll have to have 2 everythings in order to have all of the rules. Of course, you could just buy Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which contains all of the rules, other than what's found in the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook. But if you get all 3 of those books, you'll have all of the everythings, other than what's found in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Step 2. Make the absolute best character you can. You're going to want your character to be overpowered, but not suspiciously so. So make a character that seems fun, but put things down on your character sheet that appear innocent, but could be exploited with the right role-playing opportunity. If done right, your personality traits should sound like they come straight from an exaggerated resume, like great at problem solving, or extremely adaptable. That way, when presented with a particularly tough challenge, just point to your character sheet and tell the DM, well, I wouldn't know how to solve this, but according to my sheet, my character would. In order to convince the DM, as well as everyone else at the table, you're gonna need to roleplay better than them. I don't mean as your character, I mean you, the player, will have to lie, scheme, manipulate, and gaslight your way to success in a tactic called acting. And just like roleplaying, acting is a cooperative activity, where a group of people can combine their efforts to create something amazing, of which you all get to enjoy the rewards. At least that's what you can say in your victory speech. Now, you don't want anyone at the table calling you out for using technicalities to succeed in every encounter, so you just need to remind them that D&D is an imagination-based game, and right now, you're imagining harder than they are. And if that doesn't work and your friends decide to just leave you instead, that's okay. You can just imagine better ones. Step 3, bring your own dice. Now, I'm not going to tell you to bring loaded dice because that would be unethical and obvious, which is why up until now my tips have only been unethical. But let's say you're in school taking a test. If you've ever cheated on a test before, you'll know that getting every question exactly right is too suspicious. You need to get some of the answers wrong or everyone will know that you're cheating. So you could bring enough loaded dice, pass out the test answers, to all the other students. This might raise even more suspicion from the teacher, but the other students should now have your back because they're scoring high too. So they should be game to aggressively and violently deny any attempt to prove that you're cheating. And if the other students aren't on your side and they start to wonder why they're only scoring high when using your test answers, just remind them that they're not allowed to talk during a test. Step 4, have the most fun at the table. If the goal of the game is fun, you're going to have the most fun in order to win. But remember, D&D is cooperative, meaning you'll have to have enough fun to compensate for the fun others aren't having because of the hostile environment you've created with your actions. The easiest way to do this is to say, well, I'm having fun, out loud every few minutes. However, depending on your tone, which we both know you need to work on, this may actually upset them more. Instead, try some of these rapid fire tips. Number 1, when rolling dice, announce to the whole table when you get a critical hit. Then go to high five every other player one by one. If someone refuses, saying high fives have never been cool, go to fist bump them instead, because that's much cooler. Number 2, be sure to use a quirky voice when role-playing your character, especially one that's grating to the ears. If anyone complains, just tell them that what they're saying to you is offensive, and the way you do it is more realistic. Speaking of your character, you're guaranteed to have more fun if you make one with the same name and traits as a character from a popular movie or TV show. If someone argues that it doesn't make sense that Kylo Ren would be fighting goblins and orcs, just tell them that it's a fantasy game and it's not meant to be realistic. If those tips aren't for you and everyone around you is still upset, try something a little less aggressive, like bribery. Alcohol and snacks are a great way to ensure everyone else is too distracted to see what you're really up to. Now, you might worry that it's going to cost you a lot of money to bring food and drinks for everyone each time you play. But really, if you're paying to have more fun, and you need to have fun to win, how could that be wrong? At this point, you should be winning D&D every session. To be sure, at the end of the game, count up your victory points, ignore those around you telling you that D&D doesn't track victory points, and see who the winner is. If you followed my advice, you should always come out on top. If not, you probably didn't listen and you messed something up. So quickly review my tips to see where you went wrong. Number 1, learn the rules. Number 2, create a great character. Number 3, bring dice. And number 4, bring snacks. If you do this, you can ensure everyone has a great time and creates a memorable story, just like it says in the book.